It's Thursday, October 12th. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today we end up with on the daily chart, a 3 bar, meaning we took out the high of the previous day and the low of the previous day. Coming in today, we knew we had an inside bar here, which either means breakout or potential failure. That's what I tend to look for, or of course, just more inside price action that even consolidates further and further and further. But in this case, we had the failure up, and we moved, came back to the midpoint of the prior day range and moved to the low. We took out that target, which is the low yesterday, and then the low of Tuesday. And then you can see we got a little bit of a bounce here. So we come into tomorrow with a 3 bar, which is a little bit of broadening action in the short time frame. There's no actionable signal necessarily tomorrow. When you see the big red bar like this, even though it did bring in a little buying, you're still expecting to go a little lower. We're watching that weekly chart, which we've been talking about coming into this gap, has the potential for a reversal. But with 1 day to go in the week, unless we have a big down day that gives a shooter bar, this could end up a little bit green, and that creates a little bit of uncertainty going into next week. Are we going to try to rally a little higher? There's still some gap to fill, or at some point do we reverse down? So in other words, until we get the 2 down week, you don't really know if the big picture is heading lower. And we've had 3 days up, and today was the kind of a pause day to the downside, but you don't really know what tomorrow is going to bring. It's the end of the week. It's been a tricky week with economic numbers. That's why you have a lot of choppiness and volatility. So, even though I've been talking about on the quarterly chart here, this is a big picture. We had a 2 down quarter, which has 3 months to go to its next target down here. Even though we're rallying a little bit, we still have to get some kind of reversal to get below the open of the quarter to start, and then we'll feel good that all the continuity is really to the downside. In the meantime, we're just kind of playing it day by day, knowing we're in an area here on the weekly chart that can reverse. And yesterday we had an inside bar, which had, that potential that's, either a big breakout or a failure. And if you look at the 15-minute chart, the reason I didn't feel, I wasn't looking for a breakout anymore, is we had the up opening, for a while pre-market, and then all of a sudden economics news came down, so we were open near the low of the pre-market range. So if you were going to get a breakout of yesterday in here, you would have really had to start strongly up and get above that pre-market high. That's kind of how it all comes together in the way I look at the market. That's why I judge that pre-market each day, and I judge the first bar. So anyway, the first bar went red, and it looked like right out of the gates we might have that failure, and then bar number 2 went down. So you could have bought puts there, and I did buy puts there actually. And I was expecting, maybe at that point you were almost to the midpoint of the prior day on that open, and you were thinking we might out of the gates just get the failure. But instead, price kind of paused a little bit here. This really isn't a big round. Then we came to about the halfway point of the first bar and then went down. So you're still holding on to the puts. And at that point, you really didn't get a big failure to head up. It was just kind of even bars, and then you started working higher, and it was a little uncertain what was going to develop. I wasn't biased to anywhere getting to the upside, given the fact that you'd already kind of failed on the the taking out the high of the previous day and coming close to the midpoint. You're nowhere near the top of this range, but you still judge that first bar relative to, what kind of intraday structure is going to take place. So as I discussed on a midday video, if the price would have really come up, exploded through that first bar high, and then given me some, and didn't fail up there and had some kind of orderly pause, then I might have, said, okay, we're heading up to those highs up there, and the pre-market highs, and we're just resuming the uptrend on a kind of a momentum bar here that really didn't start out strong, but it might have just resumed the uptrend. But what happened was we came out, we took at so there's how, again, my method looks at the pre-market range to start, and then that first bar, I judge everything off of that. So when we came up, we were just grinding away, finally made a little push up just to take out the stops in that first bar high. Inside bar immediately down. And then at that point, this is if you were in puts here and you decided to break even or take a small loss, there was a re-entry here, and I discussed that on a prior video. And obviously at that point you took out the low of the day, and then clearly at that point you were taking out the high of the, having that inside buy failure to kind of reach target 1 and target 2. At that point, it came down very big for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars in a row. Pause. You didn't know what was going to happen. You think that maybe you get an orderly pause and another test of that, but it's near the end of the day, and it ended up just kind of pausing there after it reached its targets and kind of closing in an area where it's tricky to say what goes on tomorrow. So we'll see. You know how I don't have strong expectations now. I was definitely expecting this potential failure. That ended up being a really nice trade, although a little tricky to kind of hold on to. But if you took a loss here, there was definitely a second opportunity to jump back in, given this big picture outlook that we had in mind. So we will see what happens tomorrow. Again, I just don't know. I don't really feel strongly about a big up move. The 3-bar kind of sets up eventual signals where you either get like a 3 down. Let's say we go 3, 2 down, then 2 up into next week, or you can get an inside bar. That would be a good reversal signal, really, the downside. Maybe you just get a big 3-2 continuation, but that'll mean the high, this lower low here and the higher high here will have to be broadened on this little time frame. Will have to be broadening to other time frames. If we can really get a move down, then we should be heading to these targets down here. But at the moment, we just have a very short-term higher, and lower, low, and we'll have to see if that broadens either way. But again, even the 3-bar, even if we go up tomorrow, you can get a 3, 2 up, 2 down signal. So into next week, I think we'll have a clearer idea, on the daily chart, what signal develops. There's no actionable signal tomorrow. It doesn't mean it can't go either way, but we'll find out. And then I really want to see how this weekly bar ends, because again, do we really continue higher and into this gap, or is this kind of the start of some major reversal to the downside? And again, for tomorrow, you'd have to get below the open of this bar, or get a real big shooter bar to really feel comfortable the next week you're going lower. If we don't get that, then it's probably just going to have to be some daily 3, either 1, 3, 2 up, 2 down, or 3, 1, 2 down, some kind of actionable signal on the daily chart into next week before we can really decide what this weekly chart's doing. But that's what we're kind of still focused on. Still the just a little rally here and an eventual move lower, given that quarterly chart is still not above the halfway point of the prior quarter, and we have 3 months, or 2.5 months essentially to get down here. So we will look for that reversal still. But today was a good opportunity. Tomorrow, just tough to say, but we'll just have to see how things open.